The Premier League, does it ever disappoint? Well, it depends who you're asking against. The final day has been done, and Everton Football Club are safe after a much-needed victory against Bournemouth, and they secure their status, by the way. They will compete in English Top Flight League for the 70th consecutive season. Leicester City, unfortunately, despite the victory, they are down. They will join Blackburn as the only team to have won the league and be down as well. Leeds are also down. Much to discuss, of course. Aston Villa, secure Conference League. Janusz Michalek is in the house. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well. So the season's over. We know everything now, my friend.
We know everything. And Janusz and yours truly will be discussing what happened, obviously, at Goodison Park as they beat Bournemouth. Also, the after effects of the teams that went down. Who went to Europe, of course. We also have our reporters, by the way, on ground. Mark Ogden is at Everton. Rob Dawson is at Leeds. And James Ollie at Leicester as well. So let's begin. Your initial reaction here, Janusz Michalek. Everton, they're safe. They made it happen. Sean Dyche made it happen. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is the second season in a row where they're fighting that. It's a massive, massive club. I saw that stat today that, I think it's been 124 years in top football in England, and Everton have been there for 120 of them. That's incredible, right? But again, I hope that this is the second and last warning for Everton Football Club, because I don't think they can sustain the way they've been playing. They're a big club. They have a lot of decent players, I would say, but something needs to change going forward, because as we've seen, even Leeds, obviously Leeds saved themselves last season on the last day. We see what's happening here, and I just wonder if Everton can continue to do that. So next season, a year of transition for Everton, I think, out of jail card this time. And if they want to be in the Premier League when their brand new stadium opens in 2024-25 season, I think they have got a lot of thinking to do, a sense of direction, a sense of recruitment. So they are ready to enter into that new stadium and maybe a new era for Everton Football Club, because that's not where they belong at the end of the table.
Yes, a very good point there. There is a lot to do for Everton this summer and beyond, because you don't want to make this a repetitive thing, of course. And as Janusz said, by the way, only Arsenal, by the way, continue to be in the top league longer. 70th campaign in the top flight for Everton, but much, much more to do. As I mentioned earlier, we have our writers from the stadium. Let's have James Ollie, who, by the way, is at King Power Stadium despite the victory. Dean Smith and the team tried their hardest, and it was looking good at the beginning, James, and then obviously the Everton goal came in. Give me your initial reaction and the atmosphere there at Leicester City.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody really knew quite what to make of this. It was a strange afternoon, because obviously they had to do their job first and foremost to win the game here, and then hope for some help at Goodison Park. And when they went 2-0 up, it was sort of an odd goal celebration, because it sort of, yes, it made the result a little bit more secure here, and obviously gave them the 2-goal advantage. But by the same token, they're sort of saying, well, this doesn't really change anything. We're sort of. It was odd. The longer the game went on, the more people were watching this, but clearly had radios on, listening to something else. And I think the sort of atmosphere at full time was, I mean, look, no one can blame Dean Smith for this. He was given 8 games. The fact is they've not had a great run in those 8 matches, but that's not really long enough to try and keep a team in the Premier League. So clearly he was never going to be the focus of the team's ire. And they do like the owners here. I mean, there has been criticism of the owners, but obviously 7 years ago, this club was Premier League champions against all the odds. So I don't think anybody really quite knew where to focus their frustration, and that was sort of encapsulated by the lack of the acknowledgement from the players at the end there when the relegation was confirmed, because it was a mixture of boos and applause. And again, I think some of the fans would blame some of the players for not turning up in many of their big games before today. But I think others think the sort of deep-rooted issues lie elsewhere, with the money that they've, obviously the losses that they've accrued off the field and their recruitment. So a lot of soul-searching here today, because, I don't think anybody had Leicester going down at the start of the season when we all made our predictions. And really, this is a club that's at a major, major crossroads now. Some big decisions have got to be taken going forward.
So I'll let Janusz chime in a second here, but James, just one question for you, because obviously we've got Rob and Augie coming in as well. You mentioned, of course, that, it wasn't too long ago when they won the Premier League. I do believe COVID-19 was a massive factor. The owners of Leicester City, of course, rely a lot on retail and duty free. So obviously the money wasn't there. Replicating the talent that was leaving. What's next? Does Dean Smith stay? Are we expecting some big players leaving the club? What's the next step, do you think?
Well, I mean, it will be the second question in the press conference, won't it? Dean, how do you feel? Are you staying? Look, I mean, he may do. He's got experience of managing in the Championship. It would be a cheaper option for them than, and finances are going to be a factor. I mean, the next immediate step is there's going to be a lot of players leaving the club. There's multiple players: Tielemans, Perez, Sionchu, Mendy, Amati, Johnny Evans, Ryan Bertrand, Tete, all out of contract at the end of this season. They cost, both that group of players cost £100 million to bring in. So there's going to be a big turnover in players. You start looking at players like, most obviously, James Maddison. Is he going to hang around for another season? You wouldn't have thought so. Harvey Barnes may go as well. I think this squad will look very, very different come September the 1st. I mean, really different. And they've got some tough decisions to make. Yeah, you're right about the financial losses. I think they lost a club record £92 million. They announced that in March. Didn't include the Fofana money, so they've got 75 million coming in there. But look, I mean, this is a club that needs its Premier League status to survive. So they're going to now have to cut their cloth accordingly, big time. And as I say, the lineup for the first game of next season could be completely unrecognisable from what we've seen out there. And maybe they need it. I mean, relegation is always a moment for a big reset at a club. But yeah, it's just sort of staggering to think. As remarkable as it was for Leicester to win the Premier League, this isn't quite as big a shock, but it's not far off.
Yeah, sometimes you have to break it all down in order to build it right back. But Leicester City are heading down to the Championship, joining Southampton and Leeds United. And we have Rob Dawson joining us as well from Ellen Road. It was a pitiful start as Tottenham got going straight away, Rob, and it really didn't get better from then. Give me your overall reaction from the game and just the overall mood regarding Leeds United as they drop to the Championship.
I mean, the mood around Ellen Road at the moment, or at the final whistle, was one of anger. They really had to harness the power of Ellen Road today to stand any chance. Obviously, they needed other results to go their way, and they end up conceding in the first 2 minutes. They go in at half-time 1-0 down, and there's a little bit of a reset perhaps at half-time, and they think maybe they can get back into it. And again, straight after half-time, concede a second goal, and when you go 2-0 down in a game that you need to win, it's all but done and dusted. And even when they got a consolation goal through Jack Harrison, again they conceded 2 minutes after that, and it really was a calamitous performance. And I think even after the first goal goes in after 2 minutes, the Leeds fans inside Ellen Road had kind of resigned themselves to the fact that they were going down. There were chants of "you're not fit to wear the shirt" at the players. There were chants at the board as well. Sack the board and to the owners to sell the club. There were boos at the full-time whistle. It really a miserable day for Leeds fans.
A miserable day indeed. Janusz Michalek, let me ask you this. Where is the blame? Is Sam Allardyce, did he come in too late? Should he have done more? Are the players to blame? Where do we go here as Leeds United, after returning from Marcelo Bielsa days, now drop back to the Championship? Where are we looking at here?
Well, first and foremost, just incredible instability, right? If we look at the teams that are dropping, it's a common threat, isn't it? That's usually what happens. And some save themselves in the last moment. I mentioned Everton; they've got a lot of thinking to do because obviously, I don't think they can get away with that for another season. They haven't been stable as well, so that's one. With Big Sam, I know across the pond my colleagues here how they feel about him, and I have a lot of respect for him. But I've never been a big fan. I can appreciate the fact that in the past he's kept some teams up, but he's a minimalist, right? So if you bring somebody for 4 games, it's not easy. But clearly they brought him in because he can bring in the fundamentals, the defensive fundamentals, and maybe settle a team. And here we are, 4 games. He's conceded even 11 goals. That team was maybe worse under him than it was before him. I could easily make that case. So he certainly hasn't done anything. I know he's got a little bit of an ego, and maybe in jest he mentioned some of the things that he's as good as anyone, but I haven't seen it. I'll give him credit for saving some teams. This is the second team that goes down, and I don't think he's made any difference whatsoever. With one exception, I thought maybe, just maybe, putting Joe Robles in goal, but I'm not even sure about that. So, how England at one point picked him as a manager, it's beyond me. Imagine him with some of these young players that are thriving right now. So, I want to be careful how I say that because. I'm across the pond, but I just, not my cup of tea, these sort of managers. And I just don't buy into Big Sam as much of a credit as I want to give him.
Rob, let me ask you something before before we move on to the other conversation, because I think that, regarding what Giannis has signed, the managerial changes, and of course, Jesse Marsch didn't work out. And then you go from trying to, emulate, I guess, the energy of the Marcelo Bielsa days, and you bring in, just like Giannis said, Sam Allardyce. Isn't Andrea Radrizzani and his team a little bit more to blame here? How you can go from 180 in terms of a philosophy and a strategy to one other? Where are the fingers being pointed at, do you think, from the Leeds United fan base?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, there are two sets to blame here. You can point at the mismanagement off the field. They probably stuck with Jesse Marsch too long. They gave him the January transfer window, allowed him to bring in players, and then sacked him. They made another short-term appointment in Javi Gracia. That didn't work out, and then they bring in Sam Allardyce for 4 games. And you're right. How do you transition from Marcelo Bielsa all the way to Sam Allardyce, 2 managers you would think are polar opposites in terms of their approach to the game, but also just on the pitch, purely on the pitch, there have been far too many individual mistakes. Sam Allardyce even today wrote in his programme notes about even in his short spell here that there's been too many individual mistakes. And just watching this game, inside 30 seconds, Weston McKennie has the ball, he has a simple pass and gives it straight to Son, and Tottenham have a chance to score. So, yes, mistakes off the pitch, things to address off the pitch. Obviously, they're going to need a new manager now, but, the players also have got to shoulder some of the blame themselves. Today, when they needed to win, they were absolutely pitiable. They just made so many unforced errors, so many mistakes all over the pitch, and have ended up losing a game 4-1 that they desperately needed to win. So, yes, mistakes off the pitch, but also lots and lots of mistakes on the pitch, typified with the performance today against Spurs.
Yeah, a lot to do, of course. And Leeds United joins Leicester City and, of course, Southampton dropping to the Championship. Rob Dawson, thank you so much, my friend. Make sure to get home safe.
Thank you.
Rob leaves, James stays, Giannis stays, and hopefully we'll have Mark Ogden joining us soon. But now that the team's dropping down, we have also secured European qualification. We already know about the Champions League spots, of course, Man City, Arsenal, Newcastle, Manchester United. We know Europa League, Brighton, of course, and Liverpool. We'll talk about that in a second. And the Conference League is Aston Villa's James Ollie. For the first time since Stilian Petrov was captain, the Villa. Let me tell you something, James Ollie, because I want your opinion on this. In October, when Steven Gerrard left, Aston Villa were only out of the relegation zone on goals scored. Now, Conference League, my friend. Give me your thoughts as they beat Brighton at Villa Park.
Well, I think that actually it was a straight fight today, wasn't it, between Villa and Tottenham? And I actually think the outcome is probably best for both clubs. I think Spurs could probably do with a season without the Conference League. Not from a financial point of view. I know it's not big money in that competition, but I know your questions about Villa, and I will get there. But I mean, Spurs are just such.
No, don't worry. You go on Tottenham, James. Go on Tottenham. I'm just trying to be cute here. Don't worry about it.
They are in such a mess at the moment that you look at them and think, well, actually, a year without it, to just focus on getting back in the top 4. That club needs to be in the Champions League. Maybe it would help them than having to go to these far-flung places. But on the flip side for Villa, what a reward for Unai Emery and the work that he's done. A real opportunity to take that club, obviously with a very proud European history of its own, back into Europe. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody thought something like this would be possible when Emery took charge. But the football they play, how fearless they've been, how consistent they've been, really in the back end of the season. They deserve it, and it will really, I think, enhance Emery's hand in the transfer market. It will be an opportunity for them to grow that squad in the way that he wants. He's only obviously made 2 signings. I'm sure he'll get a budget and scope to bring in plenty more now and really mould that squad in his own image. And it's credit to him from a from a sort of Premier League point of view, it's quite a revival because he did leave Arsenal as not quite a laughing stock, but there was obviously all the talk about the good evening stuff and his broken English and could he ever communicate effectively with the players. And I know, having covered Arsenal for a long time, that there were issues there in terms of how he got his message across, and and whether his style of football could be adaptable to any group of players. I remember there was a big debate about, can he ever make this Arsenal team play out from the back? Do they have the players to do it? Well, Aston Villa now play a very, very different style to what they produced under Steven Gerrard, and he has been able to implement that without having to bring in 6, 8, 10 of his own players to do it. So, as I say, I think it's the right outcome and the best outcome for both clubs, really, in the end.
Janusz?
No, I mean, look, it's almost happened too fast. I wonder what the expectation may be as well. And who knows, maybe if Arsenal were a little bit more patient, maybe we would have seen that under Unai Emery as well. Most importantly, I think he came in, as James said, he's changed the system, because under Stevie Gerrard, for the most part, was 4-3-3, even previously as well. I think Douglas Luis has benefited from that. We've seen it, of course, another goal for him, young Boubacar, even when Dendoncker was coming in as well. McGinn, I think, has always been a warrior as well, but you could see how I think he's embraced the idea and the ways of playing as well, because I think he's also gotten even better. And, we all know that he's a worker, he's a character, he's a true captain of that team, in my opinion. Ali Watkins finally playing as a number 9, whereas, as we all know, he's often been played wide, and certainly I think we know now that that's not his position. Maybe we knew that before. So fair play to him. I think, next season is going to be a true indication of what this Villa team is. They are going to get better. The biggest thing for me is that, not that I was surprised, but I like the way Villa played on both sides of the ball, because we know Unai Emery can defend with the best of them. I think of Unai Emery with Sevilla and Villarreal. With Sevilla, a little bit more open, right, possession football, a little bit closer, I want to say, to what we see with Villa, with Villarreal, and maybe it's Europe, when I think of them, and just defending in numbers and play on the counter as well. So I think this is a different Unai Emery, who I just have a feeling has learned a ton from his spell at Arsenal. And he maybe changed his way. Of course, I have no way of proving that. But I think he put a lot of thought in his time in the Premier League with Arsenal, and came back much, much better, with an open mind, a little bit different and much better for sure.
Yeah, absolutely right. Aston Villa, University. See what I did there? James Ollie, very quickly on Tottenham once again. The managerial decisions. It's obviously been a little bit of a mess, I guess. I'm not sure what better way to do it. Not quite desperation, but maybe we're heading there. Where do you think this story is going to ultimately conclude in the summer? Who are they going to get, do you think? And who can they get in order for Tottenham to really climb back into the Champions League spots?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to overstate just how much of a blow the Arne Slot rejection was, because they reached a decision internally that they were going to essentially try and rob Feyenoord of their model, which is to get Dennis de Kloese as the sporting director and Arne Slot as their manager. De Kloese rejected Spurs, expected Slot to do the same, and he has done, and now he's signed a new contract. So they are very much back to the drawing board. It's not quite the summer of 2021 where they spoke to Hansi Flick, Gennaro Gattuso, Paulo Fonseca, Antonio Conte, Mauricio Pochettino. There's at least one or two more before the end of the Nuno Espirito Santo. We know how much of a disaster that appointment was. It's not quite there yet, but it's not far off now. They need really to identify their man and get him in as soon as possible, because again, they're a club with a lot to do this summer. Obviously, Harry Kane has ended up with 30 goals, I think, in the Premier League again. Phenomenal season, defying the mess, the absolute mess around him, above and below him. It's going to be a difficult task to keep him, I think. If Manchester United make a serious play for him, okay, they're not the guarantee that, Manchester City were of winning the biggest trophies, but they look a far more progressive unit than Spurs do at the moment. And I think if United make a serious play for him, Kane will be seriously interested in going. It's hard to say. I mean, Spurs, look, they continue to insist they're not in for Nagelsmann. They've spoken to Luis Enrique. They were quite keen, I think, on Ange Postecoglou at Celtic, but he's distanced himself from the job in the last few days. If you're an up-and-coming progressive manager, you do look at Tottenham and think, well, would you even want it at the moment? You know, no European football at all, uncertainty over your star striker, no sporting director, fans want the owners out. Yes, the stadium is amazing, and yes, the training ground is amazing, but the squad needs an awful lot of work. They don't have a centre-back really of any repute there. Central midfield is a major issue, and if you're selling Harry Kane, okay, you've got Richarlison, but you're going to need at least one more forward in. So the squad needs some major work, and they don't have, you know, endless pots of money to throw at it either. So it's not looking great for Tottenham. It really isn't.
It's not looking good at all. Reports also of maybe Ruben Amorim as well in Portugal. That could be an interesting. But as James said, of course, it's going to be a difficult one. Before you leave us, James, only quickly on Chelsea, of course. Reports, I believe, and you've been reporting on it for ESPN as well. Mauricio Pochettino essentially done, maybe an announcement even as early as tomorrow, maybe, or later today. What's the latest, and what are your thoughts then? Is this a good project for both Chelsea and Pochettino?
No, I mean, I think of the managers that were out there that were realistic targets, I think Pochettino is pretty much the best they could have got. Yeah, there won't be an announcement today. I suspect they'll do it next week. I think there've been one or two just issues with not anything major, but just sort of minor issues in terms of contracts and the finer points and just getting people to sign it off. There's no major urgency. Obviously, they had the caretaker in Frank Lampard, and I think they want to get obviously Pochettino in for the full pre-season, but with the players going away and there's been no reason to appoint him now versus a week ago or 10 days earlier. He had no interest in taking it before the end of the season. I think there's already been conversations, as far as I'm aware, taking place about players and, identifying who he might want and who he might not want. So, there's sort of a little bit of work's been going on behind the scenes already. But yeah, I mean, Pochettino, I suppose the only thing to say about him is that he doesn't have the track record of winning trophies that previous Chelsea managers, really had to have by design. But this is a different Chelsea. This is a different ownership. Yes, the fan base is the same, but it's a different ownership. It's a completely different, what that squad, again, we're talking about Leicester, but what that Chelsea squad's going to look like on September the 1st will be very different. There's going to be a fire sale there. They've got to get rid of 5-6 players minimum. I think they'll probably end up getting rid of closer to 10. Pochettino will obviously want to bring in one or two of his own. There's then other players like Romelu Lukaku coming back on loan. Does he have a future? My understanding is that Pochettino wants to talk to him to see whether that might be something that they could try and revive, and maybe he is part of the squad next season. So, an awful lot of work for them to do. But the bar has been set quite low now with absolutely dreadful seasons. It's 16 games I think they've lost in the Premier League. It's quite a remarkable number. So that'll help Pochettino, because it won't be quite the same environment that pretty much every manager's had to deal with in the Premier League era, which is you come in, you're expected to win. Well, the Roman Abramovich era anyway. You come in, you're expected to win, and if you don't, you're gone. I think if he gets top 4 next season, that will be a success for everybody concerned. And then you can think about year 2, year 3, trying to go and win the Premier League and challenge for the Champions League again. So that'll help him, I think. And yeah, given where they are and given the managers available, I think it's a good fit for everybody.
I tell you what else will help is Todd Boehly maybe will be staying in LA a little bit longer than London next season, but we'll have to wait and see about that. James Ollie, thank you so much. Make sure to follow all his content on ESPN.com, ESPN FC. Get home safe, my friend. Thank you so much. All right, that's James gone. So, Yanis, it's just you and me, my friend, to wrap up as the Premier League of 2022-2023 is over. Let me ask you quickly on that question on Chelsea. Do you like it, Pochettino and Chelsea? A lot of good things can happen out of it.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why it couldn't happen, right? I mean, he's proven in this league that he can build a squad. We've seen what he's done with Spurs. Obviously, understands the leagues. He's moving back to London, not far away from where he was. So there's going to be no transition for him in any sort of way. And I think James is right. Not only the bar is much lower, but I think what's most important is that because of how difficult this season has been, there's also a different mindset, not just with the club, but with this supporter base. I think it's very, very important because, we still can't forget what sort of a hurricane they went through, right? I mean, we almost conveniently forgot what has happened because of the war in Ukraine. Roman Abramovich, a different sort of owner that the moment he saw something wrong, he fixed it immediately. Didn't look at the money. It was his own. He didn't care if he lost the money or not. It was something that he was always willing to do. And I think the supporters gotten used to it because they could dream of anybody, any manager, any player at any given time. I think what's happening right now is going to be much, much different. These supporters have gotten used to it, that the times are maybe a little bit leaner in terms of winning the trophies year in and year out. And the biggest thing, and I think Pochettino's going to get the benefit of the doubt from the supporters, is that they're not going to expect that, Chelsea to fight for the title right away. He's going to get that time because they're used to it. After a season like this, it's almost impossible. What he has is a clean slate, and also these players, because there's a lot of good players in there. But when you have a season like that, you kind of throw in the towel quickly, and you just want the season to end immediately. But if he gets his arm around some of these young players, he's going to buy 2 or 3 key players. I think you're going to see a Chelsea, as James was saying. I think it's realistic to say that they may have a shout in fighting for the top 4. This is a much better team. This is a much, much better team. I mean, we can go to the stats, where they finish, how many losses they've had. It's all great. They've written off the season a long time ago.
Yeah, and even in that loss last week, this week with Manchester United, there's a lot of promise there, a lot of young players. And as you said, Mauricio Pochettino returning to the Premier League, hopefully will have a few tricks up his sleeve. All right, well, we're nearly done here. Let's play a little thing here, Janusz Michalek. Let's end with this. I want your opinion, and I'll give mine too after you give yours. Give me your best team, not Manchester City, and your worst team. Let's go with your best team in the Premier League of 2022-2023, not named Manchester City. What do you think?
I'm going Arsenal. I mean, I'm looking at the table. I mean, it doesn't lie because it was fully unexpected. It's not just where they finished, how close they were in terms of fighting Manchester City for that title, but also in a way they did. I mean, this was good football from Arsenal Football Club for 2/3 of the season. And obviously they look spent. We all know they didn't have the squad to keep that up. We all seen the drop off in form of Bukayo Saka a little bit. He was absolutely outstanding. Glad that he got his goal today, obviously. But I just enjoy watching Arsenal. This was Arsenal at its best, and they just came up short against one of the best teams in the world. So, I can't think of any other team but Arsenal.
Yep, the youngest average age squad in the Premier League, and they were so close on winning the whole thing. That's a remarkable achievement. I will give a shout out to Brighton as well, Roberto De Servi, but Janusz Michalek, there's only one team I'm going to say. I'm sorry. Come on, Villa! All right, Janusz, give me your worst team that stayed up, not a relegation team, your worst team that stayed up.
The worst team, by the way they play?
Just your overall, it could be, I guess the way they play, the ways they handle business. I mean, it could be Everton. We've been talking about the fact that they stayed, but there's a lot to do. So a non-relegation team that stayed up that you think, my God, you got a lot of work to do in 2023.
I mean, low-hanging fruit. But I mean, we've talked about Everton as well, because I mean, I could easily point maybe towards Nottingham Forest. Not that they were great. Bournemouth weren't great, but I think the expectations were so much lower. So if you look at Everton, for them to do that for the second time in a row, right? And last season you think maybe it was actually even easier for them because they had towards the end of the season healthy Calvert-Lewin, and they had Richarlison. They didn't have those players. Calvert-Lewin, just as he came back from this season, I'm talking about, just as he came back, of course, he was out again here. So, I mean, Everton has to be because, I mean, in terms of expectation, again, that has to be Chelsea. I mean, it's inexplicable. If you talk about expectations, easily Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah, that's where I was going, my friend. You can't spend $600 million in a season and do exactly what you did. Although that is not ultimately just the manager's fault or the manager's fault alone. But come on now. You can't be a new owner and just spend money like Scrooge McDuck and think that you can do everything. No, my selection is definitely Chelsea. But there you have it. It's the end of the Premier League season 2023. We can't wait for next one. But guess what? There's plenty more content. Janusz, do you have a PL Express on Monday or what? Or are you done?
Yes, we do. We're gonna summarize that in detail, and I'm gonna have a go at a little bit more at Big Sam, maybe, and a couple other teams. Mo Salah situation and Liverpool. That's interesting. I do have an opinion, of course. We'll see. It's just my opinion. The facts will come out, and we'll see what happens. But I'm not happy with Mo Salah. I can tell you that much.
Yeah,
a little bit of a tease for tomorrow, okay? And I like that.
That's where I was going, my friend. It's the teaser on Janusz Michalek goes all out on Mohamed Salah, and that, of course, that post regarding not getting Champions League and his possible future with Liverpool. But Janusz will be talking with Kay Murray on the beginning of the week as well. But Janusz Michalek, Luis Miguel Echegaray, guys, thank you so much for being part of all our YouTube shows for the Premier League campaign. We have plenty more to come because this game never stops. Make sure to follow Janusz on ESPN, myself as well, ESPN FC, everywhere on social and the website, and of course, ESPN FC TV. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Enjoy next week, and up to Villa. I'm just kidding. Well done, everybody. I'll see you next time. Till then, bye-bye. Have a good one.